Welcome back to Totally Unimpressed, where I, Morty, your favorite grumpy old man, wade through the muck of the internet so you don't have to. Today, we're diving into a video that promises to be a glorious mashup of Wonder Woman and a zombie horde, because, you know, nothing screams cinematic masterpiece, quite like a superhero battling brain-munching corpses and gloriously pixelated folk. I can already tell this is going to be a wild ride. If by wild, you mean absurd and possibly a waste of my precious time. I mean, who thought we needed an AI-generated parody of something that was already a stretch? If I wanted to see something lifeless, I'd just look in the mirror. So grab your popcorn or whatever you kids eat nowadays, and let's see if this is a hidden gem or just another turd floating in the digital swamp. And hey, while you're here, don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoy my grumpy rants, because clearly, I'm the star of this show. Let's hop to it.
Wonder Woman, the radiant daughter of Themyscira, steps onto a shore cloaked in fog and despair, but
Ah yes, Wonder Woman emerging from the fog like she's auditioning for a perfume commercial. Cloaked in fog and despair, more like cloaked in overdramatic lighting and a desperate need for attention. I mean, come on. The only thing more radiant than her costume is the sheer amount of CGI they probably dumped into the scene. And what's with the color palette? It looks like someone spilled a bucket of neon paint on a sunset. I half expect her to start posing for a magazine cover, instead of fighting off whatever nonsense is about to come her way. If this is the setup, I can only imagine how the rest of this train wreck is going to unfold. Buckle up, folks, it's bound to get ridiculous.
despair, but something is wrong. Her sacred island, once a haven of strength and sisterhood, now whispers of ruin. The air is thick with the stench of death. A shadow stirs beneath the crimson twilight. Something ancient.
Well, look at that. Wonder Woman's got a new look, glowing eyes like she just stepped out of a bad sci-fi flick. Something ancient, more like something that shouldn't have stayed buried. This whole scene is trying so hard to be epic, but it's coming off more like a cosplay gone wrong. I mean, who thought red glowing eyes were a good idea? It's like they took a classic character and threw in a cheap gimmick to make her look cool. If I wanted to see something ancient, I'd just visit my old bog. At least the muck there has character.
Something hungry. From the mist. They rise. Her sisters. Her fierce Amazons.
Ah, there it is, the grand reveal of the zombie Amazons. Nothing says epic showdown quite like a horde of decayed warriors with eyeless sockets. It's like a Halloween party gone horribly wrong. I can't help but chuckle at the sheer absurdity of it all. Wonder Woman strutting in the middle of this grotesque parade, looking like she just walked off a fashion runway, while surrounded by a bunch of extras from a horror flick. If this is what they call fierce, I'd hate to see what they consider a bad day. This whole scene is a perfect blend of ridiculous and unsettling. Just the way I like it.
Twisted, corrupted, lost. Millions strong. Their decayed flesh oozes with black corruption. Their eyeless sockets drip with gore. A relentless tide of claw and bone, their hunger, a plague born from darkness itself. But she...
Now we're getting somewhere. A relentless tide of claw and bone. Sounds like my last trip to the swamp after a rainstorm. This imagery is trying to be all poetic and dramatic. But let's be real. It's just a bunch of zombies looking for a snack. And what's with Wonder Woman standing there like she's on a beach vacation? I mean, come on. If I were surrounded by a horde of indeed, I'd be more worried about my limbs than striking a pose. This whole scene is a mix of epic and utterly ridiculous. It's like they're trying to make horror glamorous, and honestly, it's just not working. If this is the best they can do, I might just take a nap instead.
But she stands, defiant, her beauty forged in steel. Her seductive grace, a stark contrast to the abyss before her. With a
The classic defiant hero against overwhelming odds pose. It's like they took a page straight out of the superhero handbook. Wonder Woman standing there, looking all fierce and fabulous while a horde of zombies is ready to turn her into a snack. But let's be honest. This is a bit much, isn't it? The contrast between her seductive grace and the grotesque indeed is almost laughable. It's like a fashion shoot crashed into a horror movie. If I were her, I'd be more concerned about the fact that I was surrounded by a bunch of rotting corpses than striking a pose. This whole scene is trying to be epic, but it's teetering on the edge of absurdity. I can't help but roll my eyes at the melodrama.
With a flick of her wrist, her lasso cracks. A golden whip of fury, slicing through the undead.
Now we're talking, a golden whip of fury slicing through the indeed. That's the kind of dramatic flair I can get behind. Finally, some action. But let's not kid ourselves. This whole scene looks like a video game cutscene gone wild. I mean, look at that backdrop. It's like they threw in every dramatic effect they could find. If this is what it takes to take down a horde of zombies, I'd say Wonder Woman is definitely overcompensizing. Still, I can't deny it's visually striking. It's just a shame that the build-up was so melodramatic. If only they'd spent as much time on the story as they did on the visuals, we might have had something truly impressive here. But hey, at least it's entertaining in its own chaotic way.
Shattering their grotesque forms in a spray of black blood. But they keep coming, unstoppable. Her sacred armor bleeds black, sores creep across her skin. The infection claws at her very soul.
Now we're getting into some serious territory. The infection clawing at her soul, that's a bit dramatic, even for a superhero. I mean, if her armor is bleeding black and she's got sores creeping across her skin, maybe it's time to rethink her life choices. This whole scene is trying to be deep and meaningful, but it feels more like a horror movie trying to be profound. If I were her, I'd be more focused on getting out of there than contemplating my soul. It's like they're trying to mix high stakes with high drama. But it's coming off as a bit over the top. Still, I'll give them credit for the visuals. There's definitely a striking image here, but let's hope they don't take themselves too seriously. Otherwise, we might end up with a full-blown soap opera in the middle of a zombie apocalypse.
They drag her down. Claws sink into her flesh, pulling her into a nightmare she cannot escape. She fights. Oh, how she fights. Her every kick sends gore exploding into the twilight.
Now that's a visual. Every kick sending gore exploding into the twilight. That's the kind of over-the-top action I can appreciate. It's like a twisted ballet of destruction, and honestly, it's about time we got some real chaos in this zombie fest. But let's not forget. This is still a bit absurd. Wonder Woman looks like she's auditioning for a horror movie while trying to save the day. If she's got that much power, why not just clear the whole horde in one go instead of this dramatic back and forth? Still, I can't deny it's entertaining. It's like they took all the cliches of action movies and cranked them up to 11. If they keep this energy up, I might just stick around to see how this wild ride ends.
Strength, a fleeting spark against the endless swarm. The wave breaks, a tsunami of death crashing over Themyscira. The ground trembling under its weight, she runs through the ruins.
Now we're really ramping up the stakes, the ground trembling under the weight of a tsunami of death. That's some serious imagery right there. It's like the apocalypse decided to throw a party on Themyscira, and Wonder Woman is stuck in the middle of it, running through the ruins while chaos reigns. Classic hero move, but let's be real. If the ground is shaking that much, maybe it's time to rethink your strategy. Instead of running headlong into the fray, this scene is visually striking, but it's also a bit much. It's like they're trying to outdo every disaster movie ever made. If they keep this up, I might just need a nap after all this excitement.
A sanctuary turned slaughterhouse. Her lasso swings, seductive, yet lethal. It tears through their rotting ranks.
Now we're talking, the lasso tearing through the rotting ranks. That's the kind of action I can get behind. It's like a dance of death, and Wonder Woman is leading the charge. But let's not ignore the absurdity here. She's surrounded by a horde of zombies. And yet she's still managing to look like she's in a high fashion shoot. It's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? If I were in her shoes, I'd be more focused on survival than striking a pose. Still, this scene is visually captivating. The contrast between her fierce determination and the grotesque indeed is striking. If they keep this energy up, I might just be impressed, grudgingly of course.
But the plague bites deeper. Her emblem pulses, grotesque sores spreading.
Now that's a striking image, her emblem pulsing while grotesque sores spread. It's like they're trying to turn Wonder Woman into a horror icon. This is a bold choice, and I can't help but appreciate the visual impact. But let's be real, if her emblem is pulsing and she's covered in sores, maybe it's time to call it a day and find a healer instead of fighting off a horde of zombies. It's a bit melodramatic, but it definitely amps up the tension. This scene is a perfect blend of beauty and horror, and I have to admit, it's got my attention. If they keep this level of creativity, I might just be forced to give them a reluctant nod of approval.
The walls shatter. Millions pour in. A storm of claw and bone. She punches through skulls. A goddess unbroken. Her fists smash heads into bloody pulp.
Now we're really getting into the thick of it, punching through skulls and smashing heads into bloody pulp. That's some serious action. It's like they decided to turn Wonder Woman into a one-woman wrecking crew, and honestly, it's about time we saw some real grit. But let's not forget the absurdity of it all. A goddess unbroken, standing amidst a horde of zombies while looking like she just stepped out of a glam shoot. It's a bit of a juxtaposition, isn't it? If she's that powerful, why not take a more strategic approach instead of turning this into a brawl? Still, I can't deny the sheer intensity of the scene. It's visually striking, and definitely keeps the adrenaline pumping. If they keep this level of creativity and chaos, I might just be impressed, though I'll never admit it outright.
But they latch on, dragging her arms, her strength pulling her into their suffocating grasp. Her body bends. A seductive arch of pain as the horde claims its prize. From behind. They claw. Her beauty marred. Her power fading. Her lasso lashes out. A final cry of defiance.
Now that's a dramatic moment, her beauty marred and power fading, while her lasso lashes out in a final cry of defiance. That's the kind of intense imagery that really drives home the stakes. It's like they're trying to capture the essence of a tragic hero. And I can't help but appreciate the effort. But let's be honest, if she's at this point, maybe it's time to rethink her strategy. A final cry of defiance is all well and good, but if you're surrounded by a horde of zombies, you might want to consider a different approach. Still, this scene is visually stunning and packed with emotion. It's a perfect blend of beauty and chaos, and I have to admit, it's got me hooked. If they keep this level of intensity, I might just find myself grudgingly impressed.
black blood flows thicker, darker. They overwhelm her, a storm of rot tearing at her core. Her screams echo, a sound to shatter gods. Their teeth sink into her sacred suit. The Horde drags her down, her light dimming.
Now that's a heavy moment. Their teeth sinking into her sacred suit while the Horde drags her down. That's some intense imagery, and it really drives home the stakes. It's like they're pulling her into the abyss, and the visual of her light dimming adds a layer of tragedy that's hard to ignore. But let's be real. If she's this powerful, how did it come to this? It feels a bit like they're piling on the drama for effect. Still, I can't deny the emotional weight of the scene. It's visually striking, and definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. If they keep this intensity up, I might just have to admit they've created something memorable, though I'll still grumble about it.
Her light dimming. Her island lost to this endless nightmare, forced into their grip. Her strength bends, her will tested beyond breaking. They swarm, millions strong, a sea of death, drowning her last stand. Her chest heaves. Sores spread across her battered form. Her emblem flickers, faint under the curse of their plague. Their hands bind her. Her power pinned. Her spirit stretched to the limit.
Now that's a pivotal moment. Her power pinned and spirit stretched to the limit while being bound by the Horde. That's a serious turning point, and it really captures the desperation of the situation. It's like they're visually emphasizing her struggle against overwhelming odds. And I can't help but appreciate the intensity. But let's be honest, if she's this powerful, how did it come to this? It feels like they're really leaning into the drama, and while it's effective, it's also a bit over the top. Still, this scene is packed with emotion and tension. If they keep this level of storytelling, I might just have to grudgingly admit they've crafted something compelling.
The corruption creeps. A grotesque shadow consuming her flesh, her body betrays her. The tide closes in, they cover her, legs trapped, a tidal wave of rot, swallowing all hope. Her strength collapses, her pose weakens, the sores pulse. And she's engulfed, a million decayed hands bearing her alive. Her back arches, her emblem fades. The Horde cleanses, the plague consumes.
This is it, the final moments of a desperate struggle. The Horde closing in, while the plague consumes everything. That's a powerful image, and it really encapsulates the stakes of the situation. It's like they're building up to a climactic moment, and I can't help but feel the tension. Wonder Woman is fighting against overwhelming odds, and the visuals are striking. If they can maintain this level of intensity, it might just leave a lasting impression. I have to admit, despite all the melodrama, there's something compelling about the scene. It's a chaotic blend of beauty and horror, and it's definitely keeping my attention.
Consumes. Her light extinguished. A scream. Lost. seconds, something stirs, a whisper of dread beneath the stillness.
Now we're shifting gears. A whisper of dread beneath the stillness. That's a classic setup for something big. It's like the calm before the storm, and I can't help but feel a sense of anticipation. And look at that visual, Wonder Woman striding through a field of skulls like she's just stepped out of a post-apocalyptic fashion show. It's both haunting and striking. If this is the aftermath of her battle, it's a powerful image that speaks volumes about the chaos that just unfolded. I have to admit, this scene has a certain gravitas that's hard to ignore. If they can keep this momentum going, we might just be in for a wild ride.
Is this the end or the beginning of her fall? The Horde grows, unstoppable, insatiable, and the universe trembles. To be continued. Your support, whether through light.
Well, what a dramatic conclusion. The Horde growing unstoppable and insatiable while the universe trembles. That's a classic cliffhanger, and it definitely leaves you wanting more. And look at that final shot. Wonder Woman walking through a sea of skulls like she's the last beacon of hope in a world gone mad. It's visually stunning, and perfectly encapsulates the chaos and destruction that just unfolded. This ending raises all sorts of questions. Is she truly defeated, or is this just the beginning of a new chapter? It's a compelling way to wrap things up, and I have to admit, it's got me intrigued. If they can keep this level of intensity and creativity, I might just have to stick around for the next installment. Grudgingly, of course.
Whether through likes,
Well, here we are at the end of the cinematic roller coaster that promised Wonder Woman battling a zombie horde in 4K pixelated glory. Did it live up to my skepticism? Let's just say my pessimism was more than justified. I mean, the visuals were so vibrant I half expected a neon sign flashing "Please take me seriously" in the background. From Wonder Woman posing like she's on a runway while surrounded by ghoulish wannabes to the melodramatic themes of infection and despair. This video was a mashup of chaos and absurdity that would make even my bog feel relatively refined. I'll begrudgingly admit that there were moments of striking imagery and creativity, but they were wrapped in the kind of overdramatic nonsense that made me want to roll my eyes right out of my socket. So, what did we learn? Well, if you're a fan of absurd parodies that mix glamour with horror while raising questions about sanity, this is your lucky day. Just remember to keep your expectations at a swamp level, otherwise, you might end up as disappointed as I was before I croak my way into the sunset. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed my grumpy rants, and subscribe for more cynical takes on the ridiculouslies of the internet. Because let's be honest, if I have to suffer through this stuff, you might as well join me. Until next time, keep your wits about you and your bogs clean.